Hey y'all, this is GeoPopos here with my first game tutorial, and what I'm going to be doing today is actually showing you guys a change I made to a top-down multiplayer game that Rayuse, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, Rayuse, created in one of his YouTube tutorials. And so if you guys are trying to learn about multiplayer games and creating multiplayer games in Godot, Rayuse has a great course for that and I highly recommend it. I'll link it down in the description below. Now, what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be working on a small fix from part 4, which is spawning the players of Rayuse's multiplayer game tutorial. And so the issue here is we have in this tutorial already set up a lobby system, right? And so when all the players are ready, it'll drop those players into the world, and then the game will start, you can move them around, etc. The issue here is if you already have players spawned in and the game started, if you try to add more people to the lobby, you'll get some errors. And so my solution to that was to create multiple lobbies, right? So once players start a game, it'll just create a new lobby, and then any new players that join the game will be added to that new lobby instead of the old one, and that's really stopped all the errors from popping up. So I'm gonna walk you guys through what that looks like. Pardon my stuttering, it's a little late here. But first things first, what I would do if I were you all, I'll link this down below, is I would go and I would clone Rayuse's GitHub repository with the top-down multiplayer game. I'm going to go ahead and do that and clone a fresh version for myself, and then start building on top of what we have. In part 4. So, git clone. Hopefully I'm logged in, and I just stored that to my whatever, ls cd, let's see what it's called. It should be called Godot top-down multiplayer game, and then we're going to cd into Godot top-down multiplayer game part 4. I'm definitely missing something here. Give me one sec. Is it a dash? It's not a dash. What am I missing then? Give me one sec, guys. Part 7, part 6, part 4. I don't think I'm missing anything. Part 4. Oh, I definitely messed something up there then. There we go, CD in the part 4. And then what I'm going to do from here is I'm actually going to open the code, and I'm going to be referencing back to the changes I made here in this GitHub repository, just so I don't have to recreate this all from scratch. So we're going to have this up here, and then we'll go from there. So I'm going to close out this GitHub repo. I'm going to go, and then I'm going to open up the Godot editor, applications, Godot. You guys can just open it up the normal way. I open it up the weird way because I'm a weirdo. Godot-E. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the server. And then I'm going to open up one more instance of Godot. And I'm going to open up the client. Cool. And so we'll start off here by editing what's in our game client, because that's where I started in the... Actually, no, we'll start by editing what's in the server, because that's where I started there. So first things first. In the server itself, what I did, and I want to make sure I'm not missing anything here, is I came into the server and I updated the data structures that we have. So instead of just having a var players and a ready players 0, I created a current lobby ID variable, a player lobby ID, which has the player lobby ID related to the lobby, or the player ID related to the lobby that it's in, and then the lobbies themselves, right? And then the lobby template to create new templates once the lobby is already started, right? So first things first, let's go into our server script. And what we're going to do here is we're actually going to go in, and I'm going to, whoopsie daisy, I opened the wrong one. Sorry guys, give me one sec. This is the one I already updated. So what I actually want to do is I want to scan, I want to go to Godot, I want to go to part 4, And then I'm going to select current folder and scan everything there. I'm going to do server. There we go. Now I open the right thing. I'm going to want to do client. And now we have the server and client. Fresh instance from Rayuse's repository. So I'm going to open up the server this time. We're going to go back there. And then you can see we have the old data structures here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove these. I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to update it to what I have here. So var current lobby ID equals 0. Var player lobby equals an empty dictionary. Var lobbies equals not an empty dictionary, so it's 0. And then the lobby template, I probably should have just set up the template first and then had it be equal to that, but we're not going to do that for now. So var template equals, and again I'm going to copy and paste this because I don't feel like typing it all out. Boom. And I know a lot of people don't show their reference projects, but I'm looking at code right now, so I don't know. Anyway, so we got our new variable set up, and let me explain why I did this, right? So the current lobby ID is basically the ID of the lobby that the player's in, and that's something we need to know just because we need to be able to tell where we're sending remote procedure calls to which connected network peers should receive it, right? And that'll be based on the network peers that are stored in the player's keyword pair or key value pair in the lobby itself, right? And so with that, the player lobby happens so that when we make a remote procedure call from a network peer, right, we can find which lobby it's in by its ID and then update the rest of the players in that lobby easily without having to do a lot of hard computation that'll make our game less performant. And then the lobby template is just something we use to create new lobbies when one lobby is filled up or started. And right now it's only when it started. I haven't created a max size for the lobby, but the max size for the game is 4 players. So you can either create a lobby of 4 people or create 2 lobbies of 2 people. So that's the max extensibility right now. You guys can update this if you want. Let's see what other changes we made. So on player connected, we actually send back the lobby ID to that player so it knows which lobby it's in. And I think that's pretty important. And when do I do that? I do that on player connected. Am I in the right code? Yes. Oh, duh. It doesn't show the start server, which is irrelevant. Okay, and then the next change I made was to the send player info function, which obviously we can see there's some issues here. So what I did is remove this, lobbies, and we basically add the info to, let me see, did I change this? Yeah, so current lobby ID. When we're creating these people, it's going to be in the current lobby ID that's active. We only have one active one at a time. In the future, I may change this so you can just create lobbies manually. The player can do that, and then other players can join. They can either see the list of lobbies available and join, or they can join a friend's lobby who shares their ID. But for right now, that's not what we're doing. So we're going to do players. And then we're going to set the same way we used to do in the code of just having player ID. Right, if you look back here, we just had the player's dictionary. Right, now instead of just having one player's dictionary, we have one player dictionary in each lobby. Right, that's all we're doing. And then that's going to be equal to player data, I believe. But let me double check my reference. Yep. And then player lobby ID. Right, we're going to be updating this player lobby dictionary just so we can find the lobby that it's in by its ID. Player lobby ID equals current lobby ID, I believe. Yep. And then our set players, and then instead of just having players here, right, we have to do lobby, lobbies, current lobby ID, and then we can grab the players dictionary from there, right? And then from there we have to update the load world function, because every time we load the world, we're going to be creating a new lobby as well. So var lobby ID equals player. So the player who sent us through, right, and we need to actually receive the ID from the game server now. right, we'll find which lobby they're in by selecting the player lobby dictionary and then choosing the value that's related to their ID, which tells us which lobby they're in. From there, we want to do, instead of ready players, right, we have a key in the lobby dictionary, ready players, and that's what we're going to update instead. Right, so it's going to be lobbies, lobby ID, which is what we just grabbed from the player lobby dictionary, and then ready players is a key now. So we're just going to add 1 to that, and that should update that functionality there. And then all we got to do is update this conditional statement, right? So instead of player size, we know it's lobbies, lobby ID, oops, lobby ID, and then players is going to be a key, and then we're going to get the size of that dictionary that's returned. And we're just going to do the same thing here. And then instead of players here, it's just going to be ready players. Easy enough, right guys and gals? There we go. And then so RPC start game, I don't think we changed anything else there. And then so lastly, what I did first is I set this up and just got it so that the game world was actually creating without any errors. And then from here I updated the game state so that when it was spawning players, it would only spawn them to the place or the world where that player's lobby was, right? So it only spawn players to the lobby that they're in, if that makes sense. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to go to the gamestate.gd in world, gamestate.gd, and we're going to make a few updates. First things first, we got to create an on ready bar, which is just the server, right? Because that's the current scene. Because if you go to project settings, you can see when we run, we're running server-server.tscn. So naturally, on ready bar server, get tree, and then current scene is going to give us server, right? So what's cool about that is we're then able to use that. I believe it was after player add child, yeah. So it would be var lobby ID equals server dot player lobby ID. We're just using that dictionary we created earlier. Lobby to grab the lobby ID for the player that is being spawned. And then from there, we want to loop through all the players in that current lobby. So for p player underscore ID in server.lobbies. And then we're just going to use the lobby ID. And then the dictionary players is what we're going to want to loop through. Yep. What we'll then do is we want to do an RPC ID call. So we're going to be calling RPC ID for all the player IDs that are inside of that lobby, right? So p underscore ID, it's the only update we made to the servers, I believe. Let me double check. Right, so we updated game state, we updated server.gd, and then I think the rest of them, no wait, we need to update the player as well. So let's go ahead and do that, and then we'll move on over to the game client, I believe. Yep. Game client, yep. So last thing on the server here is the player, right? Again, we're going to get the current scene. So I basically just took what I did here and duplicated it so that only players that are in the lobby actually receive the update, right? We don't want it to go to any other players. So what we're going to do is we're going to get lobby ID. I also added ID here, I believe. Yep. So we're going to get the lobby ID. Why is that giving us issue? Server. Oh, that's the issue. So what we're missing is server player lobby ID. There we go. And then let me make this next update here. Yep, so the same thing. So for p underscore ID, we're getting all the player IDs inside of server dot lobbies, and then lobby ID players. And then again, we're just going to do an RPC unreliable ID call, right? Because we only want to call the player IDs of players that are inside of the lobby. And then we should be good from there. Let me double check my code. Yep. And I forgot a comma. Cool. So that's it for our server. Should run nice, fine, and dandy now. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to come in here and we're going to update our client. And so with the client, what we're going to do is we're going to first update the lobby. I don't know why I deleted these lines, but probably just to clean it up. Right, so, we don't need to update the lobby. So for the player, actually we'll update the game client server first. Right, because that would make the most sense. We're going to go to server GD, and then make the updates here. All right, so first is we want to have a lobby ID in the server itself, and then func load game. We actually want to send the local player ID to that so that it can then, in the load game function in the server, which we just updated. One sec. Right, or the load world, I believe. Give me one sec. Load game. Yeah, load world is what we're calling remotely, right? So in the load world function, we need to set the lobby ID to the player lobby, right? And the ID that, or the lobby that's connected to that ID, right? So that's why we got to update that there. So, got lobby ID under load game. We're just going to be updating the remote procedure call we made. And so instead of it just being load world that we're calling load world with a variable, which is the local player ID. Save that. And then the next one we got to do is set lobby ID. And I think I created that from scratch. Yep. Func set lobby ID. And then we're going to set lobby ID. Is this a remote func? Yep, so we're going to be calling it from the server. D is equal to ID. And then from there, I just print lobby ID to make sure it was working. We actually don't need that anymore. And the last update we're going to make is actually to the player itself. Right, so I'm going to open up player GD, and then make the updates we made here. First is giving the player a lobby ID. Not sure why I did that, but I guess we'll see. And then I updated the RPC unreliable call on movements to send the player ID as well. Right, so we'll do server dot local player. What was it called? Yeah, local player ID. Oh, I spelled server wrong. Oh, I didn't capitalize it. Player ID, and then that should be good there. And the last update to make here is that should not have been commented anyway. So it looks like with those changes, we should be good to run the server and the client and be able to create two separate lobbies. So we're going to test that out. So I have the server up. I'm going to open up another instance of Godot just so that we have the launcher here, and I'm going to search client. And so we have our new client that we just created. I'm going to run two instances of it first. Run. So we have our two instances here. We're going to call this one George 2. I'm going to join the game. I'm going to call this one George, and then join the game. I'm going to hit ready here. I'm going to hit ready here. And now we can see the game is live, right? So for some reason my player movement is not working. Give me one sec. Player GD server. Are we getting any errors here? No. It's super odd. So physics process. Get input vector. Oh, move right isn't a thing. Or maybe he set that up in his project settings. Oh, yeah. Oh, so it uses WASD. That makes sense. Cool, so does that work? Yep, that works. Okay, so the movement is working. I was wrong. And then we're going to set up 2 other instances of this game, because the max connected players we're going to have is 4. And I'm going to call that George 3 and 4, or we'll call it GOPOPOS3 and GOPOPOS4. I'm going to join the game. Now you can see, oh, it's busted. I broke something. Because there should only be GeoPopos. Yeah, it's going to cause the errors. Oh no. So they're all on their own. Right, you can see GeoPopos 3 and GeoPopos 4 are in their own rooms. No, but it's still showing that here. Okay, so we're just missing one update. Let's figure out what it is. So we updated server.gd. We updated player.gd. That's all we have to do in the game client. So that means we're missing something inside of the game server. Give me 1 second, guys. Game state. Despawn players. So there's something going on with the lobbies themselves. So let me open up the server again and see what's going on there. So var lobby ID equals player lobby ID. One. Oh, I didn't create the new lobby. Why is that not showing in here? So on load world, right, we set up the lobby ID, we set up the lobbies, and then once we updated that, I forgot to update where we're actually creating a new lobby, and that's where the issue lies. So that was my bad, guys. That's why you gotta pay attention when you're coding or copying code. Current lobby ID plus equals 1, and then lobbies. Current lobby ID, and then this is where the template we created comes in, right? Because we set it to lobby template. So that empty lobby template that we created earlier, we do that when we're creating our new lobby, so that we have all the scaffolding we need to build off of. Now, if I run it, it should work. So we're going to try that one more time. I'm going to have to close all these out. This is very, very, very tedious to test, by the way. So have fun with that, guys. I hope you don't miss any of the code like I did. But what we're going to do now is I'm going to run 2 instances again. And we're going to call this GeoPopos2. Join game. I'm going to run another instance. It's going to be called GeoPo. Ran a lot of instances, okay. It's going to be called GeoPopos. Join game. And now I'm going to hit ready here. Ready here. We got our game going. We're moving around. Perfect. Same for this guy. Moving around just fine. No issues. What we're going to do is I'm going to create 2 new instances of the game. Right? And so I'm going to do GeoPopos3 here. Join game. And now you can see there's only 1 person in this new lobby. And then GeoPopos4. Right? And now, if I hit ready on these, you can see that there's 2 separate games running. So there's the game with GeoPopos 3 and 4, and then there's the game with GeoPopos 1 and 2. And they're running completely separate from one another. And just to show you that, let me actually have all 4 showing at one time. Right, so you can see the game with GeoPopos 3 and 4 are running separately, right? Not being affected. We're not affecting GeoPopos 1 and 2, and GeoPopos 1 and 2 are running separately. Is this still selected? Can't figure out why this guy's still moving around. Give me 1 sec. Yeah, so it looks like I've just selected too many screens at once. But outside of that, you can see GeoPopos 2. Right, when he moves, it only affects the game with GeoPopos and GeoPopos 2. When GeoPopos 4 moves, right, or 3, right, it only affects the games that are within the lobbies themselves. So I hope that helps you guys. If you have any questions, let me know.